I think I try to incorporate global learning into my teaching every day, really, because I'm quite lucky with English, because we study things like poetry from other cultures. We always have to talk about context, and there's always an opportunity to talk about other countries and learn about other countries, and the children do find it fascinating. I think where it's difficult is actually making them see the relevance and actually applying it. And so when you can link it to a writer or link it to a documentary or something like that, I think it helps them visualise and really empathise. I don't like to shoehorn it in. I like to just talk about it every day and just generally make them see other cultures as a great thing rather than just a sympathetic thing. However, where I'm quite lucky with something like persuasive writing is that I can incorporate international adoption, I can incorporate international laws generally, and students can learn then about other cultures and suddenly realise that everywhere has its own uniqueness that they find fascinating. And I do find that it really draws them in if they do learn about other cultures.
I feel like I incorporate the global dimension in my own perceptions and values anyway, with how I talk to the children. And I'm very well. I embrace all walks of life, ethnicities, and I'm very keen on sustainable futures. And I think the children get a general sense of that when I'm teaching anyway. But I almost feel sometimes like that schools can say, well, we've done the Samba Day, so now we've incorporated the global dimension. That's done. Now we can move on to our topic in the Victorians or something. And I just sometimes feel as though you get one thing done and then that's it, it's done, let's move on to something else. It's got to be a continual thing, you keep going. And I think you've just really got to, as a practitioner, believe in the global dimension and really want to incorporate it, to be able to bring it out in general in everyday life and all the lessons you do.
I've incorporated global learning into my classroom via encouraging children to be resourceful, respectable, responsible citizens. Just within the classroom as a community, I teach reception class, and as a trainee I'm obviously restricted to as to what I can kind of teach in the scheme of the classroom. I have to speak to the teacher, and as they are so young at this stage, I think it's just important that they have high values of each other, share a respectful kind of attitude towards each other, and just have the confidence to kind of develop an inquisitive and interest in the world first of all.
As a subject, geography is quite encompassing of these issues, so it's very easy to sort of have them into lessons on a day-to-day basis. An example of which is my Year 7 class. At the moment they're studying a module on Japan. They've been learning about how a little bit about stereotypes to start with, about how actually what they might perceive about Japan, about people living there, is actually not necessarily correct, and also at the same time making parallels to sort of British culture. What do we see as being stereotypically British, and then actually sort of trying to challenge some of these conventions. So that's been really interesting. I had some students at some time sort of saying, Miss, why are we learning about Japan? I've never been to Japan. And I said, well, we're not just learning about Japan, we're learning about issues that occur in Japan and across the world.
The school I'm at the moment is part of a Comenius project, which visits sort of 4 schools over 2 years, and in that time each of the schools makes a visit and does presentations and just celebrates the culture, eats the food of the place. And this really opens the students' eyes to different schools, and they can associate more with it because it's people their age. That's what I like about pen pals and exchange projects, is that they can see it from the eyes of somebody similar to them. They add them on Facebook, they add them on Bebo, and suddenly they've got links around the world.
I would like to involve children in more kind of global perspectives, in looking at current issues in the world, art, drama, music, because I think they're all very valuable experiences for us to learn from. And I think that at the young age that they are, I think that that's a really valuable way of kind of teaching them and introducing them about the world.
Something that a lot of people seem to be unaware of is that certain discriminations doesn't just apply in Western countries, but it can really happen everywhere else. And when I was working in the Middle East, being from a Middle Eastern background, I can understand certain preconceived ideas about certain ethnic minority groups who, you know, might be in different countries just working as like builders, and the way they perceived these people was very, very negative. So I used that to my advantage, and these children were only in reception, but then I managed to actually bring in the importance that if these people weren't actually here to build this country, you wouldn't have anything. And I think that was so important. It was very small activity how I did it. It was just, I provided examples of what, you know, the United Arab Emirates used to look like and what it looks like now. And they managed to kind of just grasp the idea and draw it themselves, what they would like it to look like or what they thought it would look like in the past.
I incorporated global learning in different ways, and one example is that I taught my students about German expressionists, and that was a GCSE project, or still is a GCSE project because I'm still teaching it. And my introductory presentation was on Ernst Ludwig Kirchner, and his artwork links extremely well to African art, because that was one of the inspirations. So what I did, I actually put his paintings next to African masks, and then asked the students for similarities and how they were using semantic methods, how to judge the features of the faces, whether happy, sad, and so on. So this actually includes also the global perspective that we always learn from one another, and we always have.
I've also been able to incorporate global learning within the classroom in other areas. In the primary school we do SEAL, which is about social and emotional learning. And there's a lovely book by Anthony Brown called Silly Billy, and it talks about worry dolls, which are from Guatemala, from South America. And we were talking about our own worries and the classroom worries, and the year twos, even though they're young, they have some worries about monsters under the bed, and we used that approach to then look at how Guatemalan children have their own ways of dealing with worries, and they make dolls which they say their worries to, put them under the bed, and then their worries disappear overnight. And then we were talking about this, and then we talked about how we deal with our worries within England, within Exeter, and they talked about how they talk to the parents. They might, some people just play sport, and then one kid just says, I keep my worries inside. And then we talked about what ways are really good, what ways help us, and what ways don't help us. And we talked about the different worries we might have to people in other cultures have. And it was very informal, this lesson, but it was really useful because they found an insight into how other cultures deal with the worries. And then we went on to draw and make our own worry dolls, and it was really nice because you saw the kids talking to their little worry dolls, whispering their worries, and they really responded really well with it.